Welcome, everyone, to this deep dive. And today we're going to be going deep on Marcus Aurelius,
The Roman Emperor.
the Roman Emperor from 161 to 180 AD.
Exactly. And we're going to be looking at excerpts from a biography of Marcus Aurelius and also selections from his personal writings.
His meditations.
The meditations, exactly.
And I think it's fascinating that these writings weren't originally intended for public consumption.
Yeah.
So,
Kind of gives us...
yeah, they offer like this raw, unfiltered glimpse into this man's mind as he was grappling with this huge responsibility, very human struggles,
Yeah, it's that contrast, right, between his public image as this wise and virtuous ruler,
Right.
and then what we see kind of going on in his head.
Yeah, the turmoil.
The turmoil in the meditations.
Yeah, that I think makes him so compelling.
Absolutely.
So today, we're going to be covering, obviously, the key facts of his life, but we're also going to be exploring how his Stoic philosophy helped him navigate the chaos of leadership and war and even family drama.
And I think what's remarkable is that, these principles that he developed centuries ago, they still resonate with us today.
Absolutely.
With all the challenges that we're facing.
Yeah.
So much of what he was thinking about is stuff that we can relate to today.
Absolutely. So let's start off with a little background. Marcus Aurelius, he was born in 121 AD.
Yes.
And he took the reins of an empire that was facing all these
Threats.
constant threats.
Border wars. Devastating plagues.
Yeah.
Even internal rebellions.
Rebellions.
I mean, not exactly a peaceful reign, right?
No, not at all. Very turbulent period.
Right. And yet, despite all this turmoil, he earned a reputation for wisdom and virtue.
This is what's so remarkable about him.
Yeah.
It makes him stand out, from so many other Roman emperors.
And especially that time period,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and this is where it gets really interesting because the sources, they paint this picture of this man wrestling with these contradictions.
Yeah.
He's hailed as this philosopher king.
Right. Yet his personal life was far from tranquil.
Far from it. Yeah.
He lost several children during his reign.
Yes. Multiple children.
And there are even these rumors,
Yeah.
though not fully substantiated, of betrayal by his wife Faustina.
Right. There's that story. But, we don't know if it's true.
You're right. We have to
Take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, take it with a grain of salt. But it's still like...
But it's interesting, right?
Yeah, it's still there.
It's still there. It's part of the historical record.
It's part of,
Yeah. And it's just a reminder that all these historical figures,
Yeah.
These people that we might revere for their wisdom,
Right.
they're still human,
Absolutely.
dealing with very real things.
Yeah, they were dealing with the same things that we deal with today.
The complexities of life.
Right.
We all go through it.
Exactly. And then there's like this tragic irony of his successor,
Yes.
his only surviving son, Commodus.
Yeah.
He turned out to be a real tyrant.
A tyrant undoing so much of the work that Marcus had done. It's just, you can try to shape the world around you,
Right.
but you can't control what other people do.
You really can't.
It's a tough lesson.
And I think, to really understand Marcus Aurelius, we have to understand Stoicism,
Yeah.
this philosophical system that really guided his life and his actions. And it's not just some, dusty old theory.
Well,
It's this practical approach to navigating the ups and downs of life. And it's pretty relevant
it's incredibly relevant.
to today, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I think there's a reason why we're seeing a resurgence of interest in Stoicism.
Right.
And, at its core, Stoicism emphasizes virtue, reason, living in harmony with nature,
Nature.
and recognizing, we can't control external events.
Right.
We can't control what happens to us.
Right.
But we control our reaction to it.
Right.
So instead of suppressing our emotions, Stoicism encourages us to use reason to guide our responses.
So it's about staying level-headed even when things are like falling apart around you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Keeping a cool head.
I mean,
Not an easy thing to do.
that takes a lot of mental discipline.
It does. It does. It takes practice.
Right.
And, Stoics, they believe that things like wealth, health, even death,
Right.
these are what they call indifferent,
Indifferent.
meaning that they're not inherently good or bad in themselves.
Okay.
It's our judgment. It's how we choose to respond to them that matters.
So I'm starting to see how this would have been incredibly helpful for an emperor
I can imagine.
facing constant pressure.
Right.
But can you give us a concrete example of what like a Stoic virtue in action might look like?
Sure. So one of the core virtues in Stoicism is justice.
Justice.
And this isn't just about, fairness in a legal sense.
Right.
It's about acting with integrity,
Right.
and treating everyone with respect, regardless of their social standing or how they treat you.
So even when facing, enemies or dealing with betrayal, a Stoic would strive to act with fairness and integrity.
That's the idea.
Wow, I mean, that must have been incredibly challenging, especially in the cutthroat world of Roman politics.
Absolutely. And it's something that we see Marcus Aurelius,
Well,
really trying to embody in his own life,
right, and his
in his
writings.
writings and his actions.
Yeah.
He was known for this commitment to justice and fairness,
Right.
even when dealing with people who opposed him,
Right.
which is extraordinary.
Yeah, it is. And now let's dive into the meditations.
Yes.
Because this personal journal gives us such a unique perspective, I think,
Yeah,
on his inner struggles.
absolutely.
And how he applied those Stoic principles
In his daily life.
in his daily life.
And, again, he never intended these for publication.
Right.
So it's raw, it's honest.
Yeah, it's like we're peeking into his diary.
Exactly.
Right.
Full of self-reflection
Yeah.
and a surprising amount of vulnerability.
Yeah. And the meditations are just packed with these insightful quotes that reveal his character and his approach to life.
Yeah, there are so many gems in there.
I know I have some favorites, but I want to hear yours.
Well, one quote that always stands out to me is, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be."
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Right? It's a call to action.
Right.
It's about walking the walk,
Right.
not just talking the talk.
What other gems stand out to you?
Well, there's another one that speaks to his ability to rise above negativity. He says, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury."
That's a good one, too.
It's a reminder that we don't have to stoop to the level of those who wrong us.
Right.
We can choose a different path.
Yeah, I love that one. And here's one that really resonates with me. The universe is change our life is what our thoughts make it.
Oh, that's a good one.
Right.
And it highlights that Stoic belief in the power of our perceptions.
Yes.
But we might not be able to control what happens to us,
Right.
but we can control how we interpret it.
And how we respond.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's a crucial point, I think.
That's huge.
It's our thoughts and judgments, not the events themselves,
Right.
that shape our experiences and ultimately our lives.
This concept is so powerful, and I think it's something that people struggle with so much today.
I agree.
We get caught up in the external circumstances, but Stoicism reminds us that we have this power to choose our perspective,
Yeah,
to find meaning even in difficult situations.
absolutely. And that's what makes Marcus Aurelius so relevant today.
Right.
He wasn't just, preaching Stoicism. He was actively grappling with it.
Yeah, he was living.
He was living it,
Right.
trying to apply these principles in the midst of these real-world challenges.
And it comes through so clearly in the writing.
Yeah.
He wasn't this detached philosopher. He was a man, wrestling with doubt and frustration, even anger,
Yeah,
but also incredibly self-aware
and committed to growth.
and committed to personal growth.
Yeah.
And that's what makes him so relatable, even after all these centuries.
Yeah, he reminds us that, this pursuit of wisdom and virtue, it's a lifelong journey.
It is?
It's not easy.
Yeah.
It's full of challenges and setbacks.
Right.
But ultimately,
But worth it.
it's worth it.
Right.
It's incredibly rewarding.
It is. It's fascinating to think about how these Stoic principles developed in ancient Rome could apply to the challenges we face today. I mean, would Marcus Aurelius even recognize our world, with its constant distractions and 24/7 news cycle?
It's certainly a world vastly different from his own.
Yeah.
But yeah, the core tenets of Stoicism, with its emphasis on reason, virtue, and self-control, they remain surprisingly relevant.
Yeah, I'm curious to explore that further. Let's put on our "What Would Marcus Do" hats
Okay.
and see how his Stoic wisdom might apply to some modern dilemmas.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's start with social media.
Okay.
Imagine Marcus Aurelius scrolling through an endless feed of, perfectly curated lives.
Yeah.
What do you think his reaction would be?
I think he might be intrigued by the technology, but I also suspect that he would be wary of its potential to fuel envy comparison, that pursuit of external validation.
Right, and remember that quote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury."
Right.
So it's about rising above the negativity.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Not getting dragged into this cycle of one-upmanship.
Yeah.
So I could see him cautioning us against letting our self-worth be determined by likes and followers.
Exactly. He would remind us, I think, that true happiness and fulfillment, they don't come from external validation.
Right.
They come from inner peace and living in accordance with our values.
Right. Okay, let's shift gears to another modern-day anxiety inducer, the 24/7 news cycle.
Oh, yeah.
how do you think Marcus Aurelius would handle the constant barrage of information, much of it negative and designed to provoke outrage?
Yeah, I think he would emphasize the importance of being discerning consumers of information.
Yeah.
Filtering out the noise, focusing on what is truly important, and not getting swept up in the emotional currents of every breaking news story.
So it's about taking control of what we allow into our minds,
Sure.
choosing to focus on what we can control,
Right.
rather than getting consumed by things outside our influence.
Absolutely.
Which brings us to another, global challenge, climate change. Do you think Stoicism has anything to offer in the face of such a complex, seemingly insurmountable problem?
I do actually. I think Stoicism at its core, it's about facing reality even when it's unpleasant.
Right.
So, Marcus Aurelius wouldn't advocate for denial
Right.
or burying our heads in the sand. He would urge us to acknowledge the gravity of the situation while also reminding us that we still have agency,
Right.
that we can still make choices that align with our values.
So instead of succumbing to despair, he'd encourage us to focus on what we can do.
Exactly.
Even if it seems like a small act.
Right.
In the grand scheme of things.
Even small acts can make a difference.
Right.
And they matter.
There's a sense of empowerment in that.
There is.
Right? That even in the face of this global crisis, we can still make choices that are aligned with our values.
Absolutely.
It's a reminder that we're not just passive bystanders.
Exactly. We have a role to play.
We do. Now, you've mentioned before that Marcus Aurelius is often considered the most Christian of emperors. Yet, he had a rather complicated relationship with Christianity during his reign.
He did.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so it is kind of a curious paradox.
It is.
On the one hand, he's praised for embodying, Christian virtues.
Right.
But on the other hand, he saw early Christians as a threat to Roman order and stability.
So their refusal to worship the Roman gods and participate in state-sanctioned rituals was seen as a challenge to authority.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's almost like how some empires viewed different religious groups.
I know.
In later periods of history, too.
Yeah, right.
And their belief in a kingdom of God separate from the Roman Empire might have been interpreted as a threat to imperial authority.
Right. And it's important to remember that, religious tolerance, as we understand it today, was not a common concept in the ancient world.
Not at all.
It's easy to judge historical figures by our modern standards.
Yeah.
But I think it's crucial to try to understand their actions.
Within their own time.
Within the context of their own time. Right? We can learn from history without condoning all of its practices.
Absolutely. Now, shifting gears again, I want to touch upon another fascinating aspect of Marcus Aurelius's life, his relationship with Fronto.
Yes.
Their letters reveal such a warm personal connection.
They do.
One that went far beyond the typical student-teacher dynamic.
Yeah, you really get a sense of their personalities.
Yeah, and the depth of their bond.
And how close they were.
I mean, we see Marcus Aurelius, the future emperor, as a young man eager to learn, seeking guidance from this trusted mentor.
Right.
And Fronto comes across as not just a teacher, but a friend, offering advice, sharing stories, even engaging in witty banter.
They had a real rapport.
Yeah, and there are some wonderful anecdotes sprinkled throughout their correspondence, like the one where a young Marcus nonchalantly informs Fronto about finding a scorpion in his bed.
Oh, yeah.
And calmly dispatching it.
Just like that.
Even as a child, he displayed this remarkable sense of composure.
It's almost like a foreshadowing of his Stoic leanings.
That ability to remain calm and collected in the face of the unexpected.
You're right. And then there's the exchange where Marcus, already showing leadership qualities, offers Fronto advice on how to navigate this delicate legal situation.
Yeah, showing his wisdom even as a young man.
Right. And it demonstrates his growing sense of justice and his ability to apply reason and diplomacy to challenging circumstances.
He's a remarkable individual.
And yet, amidst these serious matters, we also see glimpses of their shared humor and affection.
Right.
My favorite anecdote is when Marcus playfully tells Fronto that he misses him more than he misses Rome itself.
Oh, that's sweet.
I know, it's such a touching detail.
It is.
And it reminds us that even emperors, even philosophers yearn for connection and companionship.
Yeah.
It humanizes Marcus Aurelius.
It does.
Showing us that behind that Stoic facade was a man capable of deep friendship and loyalty.
Absolutely. Those human moments are what make him so relatable.
Yeah, even across this vast expanse of time.
Exactly. Now, I want to delve into a topic that might seem a bit jarring in light of Marcus Aurelius's philosophical ideals.
Okay.
The gladiatorial games.
Yeah.
So how do we reconcile his participation in these brutal spectacles
Right.
with his Stoic beliefs about virtue and compassion.
It's a question that has puzzled many historians and philosophers.
Yeah.
Here we have this man known for his wisdom and humanity,
Right.
yet he was also a patron of these violent contests,
Right.
events that we, from a modern perspective, find abhorrent.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's essential to remember the cultural context.
Right.
The gladiatorial games were so deeply entrenched in Roman society.
Yeah.
They weren't simply mindless blood sport. They had
Right.
cultural and even religious significance.
So for an emperor, attending these games wasn't just a matter of personal preference. It was like a social and political obligation.
It was an obligation.
Almost like a duty.
Exactly.
Right. And I mean, it must have been hard for him to go against such a powerful tradition.
Yeah.
Especially if he wanted to maintain his authority.
Especially as an emperor.
Right.
Yeah, you have to keep the people happy.
Right. But there's evidence that Marcus Aurelius, despite his participation, wasn't entirely comfortable with the brutality of the games.
Yeah, he actually introduced reforms.
He did.
Aimed at reducing the violence.
Interesting.
Even promoting, more non-lethal forms of combat.
So it seems like he was trying to find a balance between upholding tradition and his own moral conscience.
Right. It's a reminder that even the most virtuous individuals are products of their time.
Yeah.
And may struggle to reconcile their personal beliefs with societal expectations.
And perhaps that's a valuable lesson we can draw from this.
It is.
To acknowledge the complexities of history.
Yeah.
To recognize that even those we admire may have held views or engaged in practices that we now find reprehensible. It's about learning from the past.
Right.
Without condoning all aspects of it.
Absolutely.
It's about recognizing that progress is a journey. And even those who champion virtue in their time may have had blind spots that we can now see more clearly.
That's a crucial point, and it leads us to another uncomfortable truth about Marcus Aurelius.
Okay.
Despite his Stoic belief in the inherent worth of all human beings, he was a slave owner.
Yes.
So how do we grapple with this apparent hypocrisy?
This is a challenging aspect of his legacy.
It is.
Stoicism emphasizes the equality of all people, regardless of their social standing.
Regardless of their social standing.
Yet, Marcus Aurelius lived in a society built on the institution of slavery.
Right. And it's tempting to judge him harshly by our modern standards.
Of course.
But I think it's crucial to try to understand his actions within the context of his time.
Right.
Slavery was so deeply ingrained in Roman society.
Yeah, it was everywhere.
That to challenge it would have been seen as radical, even unthinkable.
So it's about recognizing the limitations of even the most enlightened individuals. That they may have held beliefs or engaged in practices that are at odds with our modern understanding of morality.
Exactly. And it's a reminder that the journey towards a more just and equitable world, it's ongoing.
Right.
We can celebrate the progress we've made while acknowledging that there is still work to be done.
That's a powerful message. It's about recognizing the complexities of history and the human condition.
Absolutely.
About learning from the past without shying away from its uncomfortable truths.
Exactly.
Wow, it's incredible how much we've covered in this deep dive, from his rise to power amidst this tumultuous Roman Empire to exploring the intricacies of Stoic philosophy.
Yeah, it's been a journey.
And its impact on his life and leadership.
It has. And what's truly remarkable is how the wisdom in his meditations, it really transcends time.
It does.
It speaks to those fundamental human questions about virtue, meaning, purpose that we're all still grappling with.
We are, and one of the things that really struck me throughout this whole exploration is how relatable Marcus Aurelius feels.
Yeah.
Despite his status as emperor.
Right.
Here's this man who held the weight of an empire on his shoulders.
Yeah, he had a lot of responsibility.
Wars, political intrigue, personal loss.
And yet he still found the time to reflect, on his own shortcomings.
Yeah.
His own struggles.
Yeah, to live up to these ideals.
It's inspiring.
It is, and I think that's what makes him such an enduring figure.
Yeah.
He wasn't, this distant, infallible sage. He was a human being.
Yeah.
Just like us.
Absolutely.
Driving to do his best in the face of adversity.
And his honesty about his struggles, I think, is what makes his example so powerful.
It really does. It's a reminder that, the pursuit of virtue, of living a good life.
Yeah.
It isn't about achieving some unattainable state of perfection. Yeah. It's about this ongoing effort.
Yeah.
This daily practice of making choices that align with our values even when we stumble.
Yeah, we're all going to make mistakes.
Right.
But it's about getting back up.
And learning from them.
Exactly.
Right, and that's a message that I think resonates so deeply, even in our modern world, where we're often bombarded with these images of unattainable perfection.
Right.
And pressure to present this flawless facade.
Absolutely.
Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to revisit one final intriguing aspect of Marcus Aurelius's legacy, his complex relationship with Christianity.
Yes.
We've discussed, how he viewed early Christians as this threat to Roman order.
Right.
Yet he's often hailed as the most Christian of emperors.
It is a curious paradox.
So how do we reconcile these seemingly contradictory views?
Well, I think the answer lies in understanding that there's a distinction between institutional Christianity,
Right,
as it existed in the Roman Empire, and the underlying ethical principles that it shared with Stoicism.
So even though Marcus Aurelius didn't embrace the specific doctrines of Christianity,
Right.
he may have unknowingly embodied some of its core values.
Yes.
Through his adherence to Stoic principles.
Exactly.
Okay, so values like compassion, forgiveness, humility, service to others.
Yeah.
These are central to both Stoicism and Christianity.
Absolutely.
That's a really thought-provoking insight.
It is.
It suggests that there's this common thread of ethical wisdom that runs through different philosophical and religious traditions,
Right.
perhaps pointing to some universal truths about human nature and the pursuit of a good life.
Perhaps.
And that brings us to a key takeaway, I think, from our deep dive into the life and philosophy of Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah.
The wisdom of the past, even from cultures vastly different from our own, can still offer valuable guidance and inspiration for navigating the challenges of our modern world.
Absolutely.
So as we conclude our exploration, I encourage you to continue reflecting on the insights that we've uncovered. What resonated with you? What challenges did Marcus Aurelius's life and philosophy raise for you? And how might you apply these ancient principles of virtue, reason, self-control to your own life, to your own pursuit of a meaningful and fulfilling existence?
That's something to think about.
It is. We hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and provided you with some food for thought as you continue on your own journey of self-discovery and growth. Until next time, keep seeking knowledge, keep asking questions, and keep striving to live a life worthy of your own highest ideals.